479 BCE. The history books tell a brilliant lie. Greece triumphed. They describe the Battle of Salamis as the moment Persian power shattered, their great fleet vanishing into the Aegean haze. Marble carvings celebrate the heroism, the poets sing of freedom, and the chronicles are filled with the roar of Greek celebration. But that brilliant victory only marked the beginning of a different, darker war. A war fought not with bronze and fire, but with bureaucracy and biology. Before we expose this chilling historical truth, make sure to subscribe to join our deep dives into the forgotten corners of the past. And let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. For 5 chilling minutes, we need to forget the cheering crowds and turn toward the silent hills where the smoke still drifted. Amid the scorched wreckage and the blackened sand, there was a sound that historians intentionally erased. The screams rising from thousands of makeshift tents. These weren't the cries of dying soldiers. They were the sounds of conquest's true spoils, women, daughters of Athens, wives of Corinth, mothers who had watched their world burn. They believed the worst torment ended when the fire died down. They were catastrophically wrong. Survival under the shadow of the Achaemenid Empire meant entering a system more cold and deliberate than any battlefield cruelty. It was a methodical plan to dissolve an entire culture from within. Xerxes I, the Grand Emperor, understood a fundamental, terrible truth. You can't defeat a nation just by killing its men. You defeat it by owning its future. When the Persians marched into Greece, they brought more than just soldiers. They brought scribes and surveyors. Their task was not fighting, but cataloging every captive woman as a resource. By the time the Persian retreat began, an estimated 40,000 Greek women and children had been funneled into the Persian administrative machinery. They weren't just victims, they were inventory. Some were shipped east to Susa and Sardis as forced labor. Others, the youngest and fittest, were selected for a process that future generations would euphemistically call the harem system. This wasn't about luxury. It was a tool of assimilation, designed to turn the daughters of the conquered into symbols of obedience, and, most importantly, the mothers of children who would know only Persia. On the beaches, the survivors were processed in a practice the Persians called bereftum, the taking of yield. Children under 12 were separated and linguistically re-educated until their Greek roots were simply forgotten. Older women were sent to brutal labor camps. Those between the ages of 13 and 25 were subjected to a grotesque inspection, recorded like livestock. A surviving tablet confirms this chilling administrative precision. Delivered to Susa, 120 Greek females, ages 14 to 22, condition acceptable to the empire. The women destined for the imperial court were not immediately integrated. Instead, they endured months in reconditioning camps. There, through starvation, isolation, and intensive forced cultural training, their identities were slowly and bureaucratically stripped away. They learned Persian customs, prayers, and speech. Resistance brought punishment. Compliance brought slightly better rations. It was the annihilation of the self, not just a simple enslavement. Mass graves discovered near Sardis, containing hundreds of female remains from this era, show signs of abuse and malnutrition. The most haunting detail? Almost all the skulls face west, a silent testament that even in death, they longed for the home their conquerors had erased. A single, defiant whisper from the past cuts through the marble monuments of Greek victory. It's etched on a stone left by a survivor named Cliss decades after the war. I was Cliss, daughter of Nicodemus. They gave me another name. I have forgotten the hymns of my mother. This stone will remind me. Her words aren't just a poem. They are the brutal truth historians ignore. What the Persians stole wasn't just freedom. It was memory. When the first Greek captives reached Susa, the glittering Persian capital, they stepped into a place of terrifying wonder. Towering halls, foreign perfumes, and exotic gardens. But behind the grandeur stood the royal harem, a core institution of political control, not luxury. The Persian plan was meticulous, documented in the surviving fortification tablets. Women were meticulously ranked. Servants, attendants, concubines, and finally, those selected to bear children for the Persian elite. The empire's goal was simple and devastating: to blend the bloodlines, raising children who spoke Persian, served Persian interests, and felt no allegiance to their mother's homeland. This was conquest through inheritance, a quiet, biological colonization of the womb. Not all of them yielded. The records mention a 15-year-old girl named Talia, marked as refused integration. Her sentence? Endless forced labor in the palace weaving rooms. After 8 months, her death was logged with cold bureaucracy, exhaustion. Others, like a woman called Roxanne, survived by assimilating. A preserved letter she sent back to Greece encapsulates the total erasure. I have learned the prayers. I have given my son to the steward. He has your eyes, but he will never know your name. Please do not look for me. I am not who I was. That heartbreaking line is the quiet epitaph for every life deliberately stripped from history. Years later, a few women managed to return, ransomed, escaped, or homesick. But the Greece they returned to no longer recognized them. An inscription from Eritrea tells the tragedy of Harmonia. She returned after 12 years in Persia with a young son. Her city denied her citizenship. Her own family turned her away, the archival record noting only that she was defiled by barbarian touch. Her name vanishes right there. Her story, like thousands of others, was buried beneath the glory of the Greek victory epics. The chroniclers carved monuments to men and gods, leaving no space for the women who paid the true, hidden cost. In the ruins of Thebes, archaeologists found a grave of a young woman. Next to her was a small clay tablet. I am daughter of no one. I am the mother of no one. I am the forgotten. A desperate final act to defy erasure. Greece won its war and built democracy, but the real price of that victory was never sung in its great epics. It was paid in the stolen identities and silenced voices of these women. Xerxes lost his battles, but his empire succeeded in its ultimate goal. Within 2 generations, the children born to those captured mothers served as Persian scribes, governors, and soldiers. They ruled the very lands their mothers once called home. The ultimate weapon of conquest wasn't the sword. It was the silent system of assimilation. The ancient historian Plutarch noted that we remember the battles, but the cost of war is always paid by those we do not name. The daughters of Greece paid that cost, not with their deaths, but with their complete erasure. Yet, thousands of years later, through the fragments of bones, inscriptions, and bureaucratic clay tablets, their stories whisper back to us. They remind us that history's greatest tragedy is not what is written, but what is deliberately forgotten. If these silent stories move you, if they remind you that the past is filled with voices that were unjustly silenced, then please remember and share them, because as long as we speak their names, those history tried to erase still endure. If you want to keep uncovering the forgotten truths of history, hit the like button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter.